Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger around the OAA, the host of Last Week Brain Cells, host Queen Taramina on Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on the local voice on SoundCloud and those watching Orion Television. We'll have to look at this week here on the podcast. Obviously, you look at everything around the league. I mean, you kind of look at, early on. You look at the weather situations, obviously, going around in spring sports. It's just kind of like being hot and cold, when it comes to weather. We're all just waiting for this chill to just go away. We're just really all waiting for that. Kind of like last Wednesday night when the first league meets for track. It's pretty cold, pretty damp, pretty chilly. And obviously you look at what happened over at, with these relays on track and field. Baseball, Rochester's off to a really good start. And then trying to figure out what's going on with Lake Orion baseball. Struggling for some reason. Then you look at boys lacrosse, they're struggling as well. So you're going to look at what's going on here with some of these teams in spring sports. But obviously, you look at what's going on here you kind of think about this you really look at it is this figuring out how to, kind of play with this weather situation. When you kind of figure out the weather situation, how it's been the, the dynamics of the weather. It's really not been that good. It really hasn't been. So a lot to really look at when you look at the weather situation affecting spring sports. Kind of like Mother Nature really has not been cooperating with, things have been going on. So that's really been the biggest pet peeve that I've had was Mother Nature. Mother Nature's been the biggest pet peeve when it comes to looking at what's been going on around spring. Really, you kind of take a look at things. You kind of take a look at, you look at soccer. Soccer can handle playing in this weather. They can handle playing in rain, snow, sleet pellets, wind. And then also, and then track and field obviously can also do that. But like baseball, softball, really can't do that because, where they play. And then also you add the fact that most school districts don't have lights. Considering you look at the only two districts that I know that have lights are Avondale and Seaholm. Those are the two OA schools that have lights that they are willing to play their games at night when under the lights. And I think that's really interesting that those two schools can play those games under the lights. But you got to have the weather cooperate. Now, what's going to help is next week, weather should warm up. It should warm up. I'm looking at the weather situation, how it is, and you're possibly staring at, upper 50s. I know Friday's supposed to be in the 70s, but, that's going to have some storms in there. But in reality, you kind of think about it, is Mother Nature's not been very kind to these athletes, these spring sport athletes this year. They really haven't been. So I'm curious to see how, you look at games that are being redone or made up. So that's really going to be the key going forward is how many of these games are going to make up? That's going to be the question. So that's going to be the key here. And I think that's really going to be where, does Mother Nature really have, obviously like a big big scenario. That's really going to be the thing I'm looking at. So really, when you look at it, there's some big question marks when it comes to weather. I mean, really, Mother Nature really has not been too kind. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're going to see what happens. Let's talk about some spring sports here. Obviously, baseball. When you look at the OAA right now, you still got to think. Obviously, Rochester's still the team to beat in red. Seaholm's off to an up and down start. Berkeley, of course, had a nice win the other day. So kind of, you look at it. There's so many questions when you look at baseball. I mean, you don't really know who's going to go out and have a nice day. But if there's a team that's desperate need of needing a response, it's Lake Orion. Because Lake Orion has high expectations coming in. They started off 10th in the state, but have not looked good in series. I mean, they didn't look good against Adams. I think they were swept by Adams. Then they lost 2 or 3 to Rochester. So that kind of tells you they're in a tough spot right now. Really tough spot. And when you look at the baseball rankings, I mean, like, I don't know when the baseball rankings are going like up and down, and I think that's really what it is. I just think when you look at it in the baseball rankings here, and I'm clicking them right now, and obviously you look at it here, West Bloomfield right now stands as the best team right now. They are ranked 7th state right now. I mean, Lake Orion went to 12th. I mean, they've been struggling. Rochester is 20th in the state. So kind of really, when you think of it, and especially the way that Lake Orion's been playing, it's not been good. West Bloomfield's been up and down. They've been playing solid. So that's really where I think the biggest question that I have with this group, and I think if there's a team that desperately needs to respond, it is Lake Orion. West Bloomfield right now, they're clicking. They're clicking on all cylinders. So we'll see what happens. Softball, obviously, you look at Lake Orion, they're ranked number 3 in the state in softball. Farm Tales Mercy started off. The rankings were as of March 25th. So a lot has changed since then. I mean, we're filming this week on April 15th. But you look at the rankings to start. Farm Tales Mercy ranked top team in the state. They're loaded this year. They got a very experienced team. They're a very good team. So I think when you look at the Marlins, they could be that team that says maybe we can repeat. Maybe we can win it all. Hudsonville's the Bank State champion. I mean, Hudsonville, they lost a lot of experience last year. They had a legendary coach. They won it all last year. So they're a team that I think could really be a team that can make some serious noise this year. And then, of course, there's Lake Orion. I think when you look at the Dragons this year in softball, you got the pitcher, you got the pitching. Offense, yes, they lost some on offense, but the young freshman class that they have coming in, I think could really pick up the pieces. So if you're Coach Joe Waitera, you got a good opportunity here to make some noise, make some headwaves. You're likely going to be one of the hunted this year. And when you look at the OAA in general this year in softball, it's not really, when you look at the state rankings, it's not really that strong. I mean, Stony Creek, they lost the pitching. Rochester, we don't know what they've been. Adams, of course, they're going through a transition. Oxford's going to be okay this year. North Farmington, they're going to be okay this year. Um, but when I look at softball, the team to beat right now looks to be Lake Orion. And I think that's really going to be where, when you look at softball right now, they're the team to beat. I mean, obviously, I know they had a game with Orchard Lake St. Mary's playing. I think that got rained out. Obviously, Orchard Lake St. Mary's is in, I think they're in they're Division 1, I know, for softball. But I know they got a very good hitting staff. Of course, Lake Orion, obviously, with the pitching staff. I know a lot of people on State Champs were talking about that game. I mean, obviously, Lake Orion's got the pitching in Riley Lineberger. I think when you look at that matchup, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to that matchup, could that happen? Absolutely, it could happen. But when you look at, from an OAA perspective, it's clear as day. When you look at softball, Lake Orion's the team to beat. It's clear. So you think about it, you think about with softball is, does the Dragons, do they have what it takes to repeat? To get back to East Lansing. I think they got a shot. But still, you got some good teams in there. South Lyon's going to be good again. They're a solid group. But when you look at their district, Oxford, Oxford's good. They got experience, but I think they're maybe a year away. Clarkston, they just got a new coach. So they're going to have to go through that transition period. And that's got to happen during the year. It's got to happen during the year. So, and if you think that you can turn a switch and be back to where they were again, it's going to take some time. It really is. So the team to beat, I think, is going to be Lake Orion in softball. Stony Creek might have a shot, considering, they've been a very good proven program. So that's really where I think things are going to go with them. So see what happens. We're going to see what happens. Let's look at track and field now. We're going to start with the boys side, because there's some interesting storylines going on here when you look at the boys side. I think when you look at on the boys side, you kind of really think about is, who are the dominant teams? I think Adams proved that they're going to be a very dangerous team to be beat. Adams has got balance. What they did against Lake Orion in their first league meet, that was insane. It was very impressive. They had the sprints down. I just couldn't believe how they dominated distance against them. I was shocked. When I looked at leg.net, I could not believe the distance results. I could not believe it. Now, obviously, Lake Orion is a different team now. Under Coach Andrew McDonald than they were under legendary Coach Stan Ford. But you kind of look at the dynamic. You kind of look at, what's been going on here. And trying to get back to what Lake Orion's been, it's going to take time. It's going to take some time. But, right now, the distance has got to be addressed. And then, obviously, you look at Oxford, you don't know what you're going to get with them. You really don't know what you're going to get with them. Rochester, they're a solid group. They're solid. And Clarkson, they've really gotten themselves back together. They really have, with the way that team's been. So when I look at the red right now, Adams to me is clearly the best team in that division. In the white, in the white, you kind of have that. It's a very interesting, division when you look at Bloomfield Hills can be very dangerous. I think Berkeley's in that division. Pontiac. No, the Pontiac's in gold, but I mean Avondale, obviously, they're a team in there. That's been up and down. Troy, Athens, both those two teams. I mean, seen Troy the other day, and Troy's gonna be a team that's interesting. They're gonna be very interesting. I mean, I've seen them compete. They're not bad. They're not bad at all. They're not bad. Athens, I haven't seen them compete much. I really haven't. The Blue, West Bloomfield, you got Grove, Seaholm, Farmington, North Farmington, and A&T in there. So you kind of really think with them, you think Grove, Seaholm might be. I think Seaholm's got the distance. Grove's obviously we know is a very good sprinting team. West Bloomfield we know is known for their sprinters. Distance has been a big question for them. Groves we know has got the throwing. Farmington, North Farmington, we know Farmington's always been solid. On the boys' side, North Farmington we know has been good. So in the gold, obviously Oak Park. We know they're the defending Division I state champions. They don't really put an emphasis on the league. Royal Oak. Royal Oak to me, they're very good distance wise. They're a very good distance team. Ferndale combines with Ferndale U. Harper Woods, they've been up and down. Pontiac, we know, has been up and down. So when you look at this league in boys side of track, to me, if I had to say who was the most balanced team in here, I would have to say Rochester Adams by far is the most balanced because of what they got. They got sprints, they got distance, they got field events. I mean, they got it all. They got it all. So I think Adams could be a very scary team come regional time. And I know that's a loaded regional over there for Adams. It's very similar teams to last year's district regional. So Adams could be a very dangerous team. They could very well be that type of team that could really make some noise. They could really do that. On the girls' side, you really look on the girls' side of things. You got to really think about with them is, obviously you think Lake Orion, you think Clarkston, you think Adams. Oak Park obviously has got the athletes. But Adams to me, I thought was really impressive when I seen them because of what they did against Lake Orion. And Lake Orion's a good team. They're a very good girls team. They got a very good girls team. I think in that meet, some things that went wrong for the Dragons. And they did somehow bounce back from it against at the Heartland Invitational. But Adams, when I look at them, they're a good team. They're a very good team. Do I think are they the best team in this division? I probably not, because I think Rochester's got a case. Rochester, the way that they are, they're very good. I mean, you look at what they've done. I mean, they've been really good in girls lately. They've been really good. And I honestly thought in that regional last year, I thought that Rochester, from a distance perspective, they're very good, obviously, with Lucy Cook there. But I thought they would knock off Oak Park. I really did. But unfortunately, Oak Park's strength in the mid sprints, proved to be too much because Oak Park will load up on the on the hurdle events. They will load up on the sprint events. I mean, they will load up in the 400. I mean, to me with Oak Park, they're more built for an invitational type format instead of a dual meet type. And I think a lot of that is because of how their coaching staff proves it to them, trains them. I think that's really what it is. And do I like that approach? I'm not a big fan of it because one, you don't really balance your team out. And I've been really critical of the system Oak Park's ran, but they've somehow managed to get the job done. I mean, they've benefited from their middle school program. I think it's Oak Park Academy. Of course, 2 years ago, I do remember that year because they won the Oakland County Middle School meet in the girls' side. And, of course, where I coach at Scripps, we were second. We were second in the entire county. So that tells you something right there, how good Oak Park is. They're very good. And you look at Lake Orion, obviously having 3 middle schools who've been proven powers. You look at Scripps, you look at Walden, you look at Oakview. All 3 middle school teams, very good teams. Very good programs. And they've done a really good job, feeding in athletes into the high school program. And for Adams, especially we know what the feeder system Adams has with Van Heusen and West. And some athletes from West goes to Adams, and the others go to Rochester. So you kind of think about it. When you have a really good feeding program, middle school program, you're going to lead to success in the high school levels. You're going to really do. And I think, you look at the programs like Lake Orion or Clarkston, they've managed, to keep their kids in track and field. And they've really been really good. So you really think about it. You kind of think about it is we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So I think it's going to come down to is I think honestly, it's going to come down to is I think it's going to come down to is I think it's going to come down to is the middle school programs obviously feed the high school. So we'll see what happens. I mean, but Adams right now clearly is the best team right now. Adams is clearly the best team in this. Take it back. Rochester is. Then I would say Clarkston. Then I would say Lake Orion in that convo. But let's not forget, last year in the regional, Lake Orion came out of nowhere and won that regional at Milford last year. So if there's a team and a coach that can turn things around quickly, it's Andrew McDonald and the Dragons. Because they've been there before. They've won before. And I think it's going to come down to can the Dragons, stay consistent. That's going to be the key. On the girls' side, it's going to come down. Can they stay consistent? We'll see. Girls' side of things, I think Troy's solid. You got Stony Creek, Berkeley, we know is a solid group. Avondale's been up and down. Troy Athens has been up and down. Blue. Farmington's got most balance, I think, in that division. West Bloomfield's got the sprinters. Seaholm's got distance. Groves we don't know much. But I know they're balanced. And then obviously in the gold, obviously Oak Park, Harper Woods, like Pontiac, Ferndale. Ferndale, known for their sprints. Distance, I still think Royal Oak's the team to beat there. So other than that, when I look at on the girls' side of things, Oak Park, is going to be very good. They're going to be solid. But I think Adams is right there with them. I think Rochester's right there with them. I think Lake Orion can get there with that, be there. Clarkson can be there. But there's a lot of questions. We'll see what happens. Lacrosse, obviously, you look at Clarkston, the way they've been. Obviously, we know how good Clarkson's been. But Lake Orion's been a really weird team this year. They've been really weird. Didn't look very good against. There were times they didn't look very good. I know they had that. They blown an 8-1 lead against Birmingham United. End up losing that one. I still can't believe that one. Still trying to figure that one out. Then this is a team that knocked off UD Jesuit 15-0. Then this is also a team that had problems against Oxford. So I don't know what the issue is with this team. I really don't know. I know they lost a lot of key players last year. So if you're Coach Ron Herbert, you're kind of figuring out what's going on. And, if you're trying to figure things out, you really, and this is a good time to figure things out, because if you're figuring things out late in the year, you're going to have problems. You're going to have serious problems. So I think when you look at teams that do have this type of adversity, how do you respond to adversity if you're Lake Orion boys lacrosse? How do you respond to it? If you're Coach Ron Herbert, this is probably, I think, the first time in a while that you're going to have to deal with adversity. And there's no doubt that this team is going to have to deal with adversity. So I'll be curious to see how this team responds. And if they can turn things around quick. Now, what helps is come postseason time, Lake Orion's in a really, they're not in that regional with Heartland. That's where Clarkston is. That's where Bloomfield Hills is. Birmingham's going to have to deal with Birmingham Brother Rice. So they don't really have a perennial powerhouse in their side of the bracket. Now, I think Macomb County's really improved. Don't get me wrong. I think they've improved. Are they a level Lake Orion? Probably not. But rest the show here. Lake Orion's going to have some challenges ahead of them. They got a very tough schedule coming up. So they're going to have to deal with adversity right now. They're going through it right now. Obviously, look at Clarkston. Clarkston, we know, has been really good in lacrosse for a long time. The only thing I'm a little upset with Clarkston is you kind of look at that regional and you say to yourself, how in the world did we get Heartland? How in the world did you get Heartland? Because Heartland, we know, is a perennial powerhouse. We know the success that the Eagles have had. We know Heartland, they're a dangerous team. And obviously, I know they used to be on grass. Now they're on turf. So, come to think of it, they're going to be a team that really, they're going to give Clarkson problems. But then also, you might have to deal with Bloomfield. Bloomfield Hills, we know how good they are. You're Birmingham, you're going to have to go through Brother Ice. And we know how good Birmingham Brother Ice is. And right now, when you look at boys lacrosse right now, the Catholic League still reigns supreme. They reign supreme. It's almost similar to that in the girls' side of things when it comes to the west side of the state. When you look at Rockford. Rockford, we know, has been a perennial power. We know the Grand Rapids area been the perennial power in girls lacrosse. In the OAA side of things, you got Birmingham and Bloomfield Hills, who've been the dominant powers. I would say Lake Orion in this case, but the problem with them is they got to go through Heartland. And obviously, we know how good Heartland is in lacrosse. They are a perennial power. So that's really where the issues are at when it comes to lacrosse, especially on both sides, in both boys and girls. So you think about it. You kind of think about it. And you got to just, you look at on the girls' side of things, yeah, Birmingham and Bloomfield Hills, those are the two teams that are going to make the most noise. They're the teams that are going to be the ones that make, I think, one of the most unique. And until somebody beats them, yeah, Brighton's in that conversation. Don't get me wrong. Brighton could be a team that's in that conversation. But until an OAA team can break through that, whether it's Birmingham or Bloomfield Hills, I mean, for Lake Orion, for Clarkston, for Oxford, it's pretty simple where they got to go through. Road goes through Heartland. That's really where the case is. On the girls' side of things. On the boys' side, you got to go through the Catholic League. Catholic League reigns supreme right now on boys lacrosse. That's really where the difference is. That's really where it is. Girls soccer, of course, the OA has been really dominant. Adams, of course, winning state title last year. Bloomfield Hills has been there. They won a state title. Stony Creek's been there. They won a state title. Could this be Rochester's year? Could this be Rochester's year? Because Rochester, to me, has the most to prove. Because they haven't won one. They have seen Stony Creek win one at their expense. Adams won one at their expense. So if you're Rochester, you got to say, could this be our year? Could this be our year? And I think they got a great chance to win one. They got a great chance to win one. I really think with the Falcons, this is the year for them. They got to win a championship. There has to be a lot of pressure on this team. Has to be. And then you look at, on the white, obviously you have Seaholm there. You have Groves there. You have Lake Orion's there. Oxford's there. When I look at the girls' side of things, Seaholm and Lake Orion did tie at 1. But I really feel like if there was a team that can make some serious noise in their district, it's the Dragons. I mean, last year, Lake Orion went into Davison. Davison's a grass field. And they knocked off Oxford in a high-scoring game. And then they had to beat Davison in the state final. I mean, you kind of look at things in girls soccer and say, Grand Blank's been the dominant soccer program. They have been. But I think Lake Orion's in that conversation. You got to put them in that conversation now. You have to. Especially the way that they've been. And the experience they got. So Lake Orion, if there is a sleeper to win a state title in girls soccer, it's Lake Orion. Now, Lake Orion's road is going to be hard. I mean, obviously, they might have to go through Heartland again. If they played Heartland again, I think they can beat them this time. Lake Orion, to me, clearly has a Heartland problem. That's been their biggest problem, especially when you look at girls soccer, girls lacrosse. I mean, those are the two main areas where they have that Heartland problem. And for the Dragons to overcome the Eagles, they're going to have to beat them. They're going to have to beat them in the postseason. They're going to have to beat them. That's the bottom line. That's really where the issue is for Lake Orion. When it comes to postseason, it's going to always be Heartland. If softball decides to go on a big run, could they see Heartland again? Possibly. I mean, it was really close. And then Heartland ran into South Lions starting pitcher. And the name doesn't ring a bell right now. It really doesn't. But Heartland's pitcher had a really nice game against... South Lions pitcher had a really nice game. And then when they got to Lake Orion, she injures her ankle, changed the whole complexion of the game. So, you really look at it, a lot of what ifs in softball last year. But if Lake Orion and Heartland were to meet again, were to play in softball, that could be a really interesting game. But then now you got to ask yourself, for Lake Orion to win a state title, to have that deep run in spring sports, they have to go through Heartland. It's really what it is. So, we'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. But bottom line is, you look at in girls soccer, I think there's pressure on Rochester this year to get the state title. Because this senior class that Rochester has is a pretty good class. This is a class that can do it. They can get the job done. Because you look at Rochester, they've seen their city rivals win a state title. That's got to make them feel sick to their stomachs. It really does. To have these good teams you have year in, year out, and you see your city rivals win a state title before you, that's a serious problem. That is a big, big problem. So, we'll see how that goes. But there are so many questions. So many questions to think about. There really is. When you look at it. Obviously we look at tennis, Stony Creek. Obviously a solid team. Clarkston could be a dangerous team. They could be really dangerous. Boys golf, Adams, Lake Orion's in that conversation. Rochester could be in that conversation. Clarkston could be in that conversation. So we'll see what happens. So let's go now from spring sports. I do want to bring up football a little bit here. I got to bring up football. Obviously, last week we talked about with Oxford football with Trevor Potts being named the new head coach at Oxford. So, kind of, you look at where they're at, you kind of think about resetting things a little bit with Oxford. You kind of want to reset things a little bit with them. I know a lot of people question the move, question the hire, but you look at the players, the system, you don't know what type of things that Coach Potts is going to change over there. You really don't know. You do have a quarterback in Jack Hendricks. You do have a running back in Preston Wilder. You have a tight end / wide receiver in Brady Hasselbeck. So you think about it, there are pieces here at Oxford. There is pieces. My question for Oxford is going to be up front. And then obviously that schedule. The schedule is not as tough as years past, but they still got to play Macomb, Dakota. They still have to play Heartland week 1, which is going to be interesting. Oxford's going to be really interesting. Really interesting. And then you look at, so their team I'm watching carefully. Lake Orion obviously is a team I'm watching carefully as well. When you look at the Dragon schedule, Northville week 1, Stony Creek week 2, week 9, Saline. When you look at the Dragon situation, you got a two-headed monster running back in James Barrero and James Bambard. Quarterback's a big question mark. Who is it going to be? Anderson Adams or Brady Thompson? Big question. If you're Coach Chris Bell, that's the big question there. Clarkston, you kind of want to think with them. You got to look at offensively, they're going to be good. You got the Bowman twins. You got Alex Wachensko at quarterback. You got some young receivers who can make some noise. You got the lineman and Hayden Flavin up front. My biggest concern for Clarkson is going to be that defense. That defense is going to be what makes Clarkson or breaks Clarkson. Because that defense, all you got to do is watch that Adams game. Watch that Adams game in the playoffs. And explain me that. That's the big question I have with Clarkson. How is that defense going to look? Because that defense, all I have to say to them is watch that Adams game. That's really all it is. And the numbers prove it. Adams, when I look at them, to me, they're the best. I think Adams is my best team right now. When you look at balance, they got Rylan Waters coming back. That's big for them. Their senior class is very good. I think they're going to make some noise. I think defense and depth is my biggest worry if I'm Coach Tony Petrino. So that's really something to keep an eye on with them. West Bloomfield, when I look at the Lakers, last year quarterback was an absolute nightmare. I mean, the two-headed system just, honestly, I'll be flat honest with you, it just didn't work. I mean, you had two different quarterbacks. Bo Jackson, Jamal Shakespeare. Shakespeare's more of that running dual threat quarterback, whereas Bo Jackson was more of that pocket passer. Now you have Shakespeare taking over the reins full-time as quarterback. When you look at the Lakers, there's a lot of questions, particularly up front. Defensively, there's some questions with them. So there's a lot of questions with West Bloomfield. So we'll see what happens with them. We're going to see. In the white, Stony Creek, when I look at the Cougars, they got a program brewing over there. They got a program that's brewing. Coach Rick Powell's done a nice job. This is going to be his second year, so this will allow him to fully implement his system, despite making the playoffs last year. Stony Creek could be a very scary team this year. When I do my early season rankings, Stony Creek to me, it would not surprise me if Stony Creek's top 5 or top 3 to start the year in my rankings. It would not surprise me. That is how good that team's going to be this year. Now, you can't live it off expectation or hype. You got to go prove it on the field. So we'll know a lot about Stony Creek when they play a team like Lake Orion, Harper Woods, or when you look at that schedule, or especially Rochester Adams, because they got to play them. Harper Woods, we know what they got. I mean, obviously, you got Nate Rushlow. You got Dakota Grant. Boy, they were a different team without Rushlow. And I'm not knocking on Dakota Grant's skill set. But with Dakota, he's more of your playmaker. And to me, putting my quarterback, pretty risky. It's pretty risky. But Harper Woods, they do got several players on defense coming back. They got a lot of athletes, obviously. So Harper Woods could be a very dangerous team. And then you look at Groves. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. They lost a lot of talent. I still cannot get over their play calling in the Orchard Lake St. Mary's game. I still can't figure that out. It's been about almost 6 months. And I'm still trying to figure out what the heck they were doing against St. Mary's. What were they doing? And now you're basically having to replace everybody. Best player is Bo Kennard. So, Coach Flaherty's going to have some challenges ahead of him. Really is. And there's Rochester. Rochester's an interesting team. I mean, they work hard. They're physical. I got concerns up front with them. A lot of questions when I look at Rochester. So, a lot to figure out for Coach Eric Vernon. A lot to figure out. Let's go now to the Blue Division. When you look at the Blue Division, I think when you look at the Blue, you kind of want to figure out, okay, the big hire. The big hire at Bloomfield Hills, obviously, with Scott Merchant taking over there. Scott Merchant's a game changer over there. But the question is, does he have the personnel to run his stuff? You got to find a quarterback. You got to find, they got wide receivers. They got the rushing attack. Question is the line. I mean, this is totally different for him when he was at Chippewa Valley and also when he was at Lawrence Tech. So there's a lot of differences here with this system, with this team. I know his son is on this roster. So if you're Merchant, you got a lot of questions to think about. A lot of it. And then you look at who I think could be the favorite in the division is Seaholm. Now, the reason why I say it's Seaholm, it's pretty simple. Anytime you run the veer, that's where it's going to be. The veer. That's really how it's going to be. And I don't think a lot of the teams in the blue seen a veer. And the veer is one of the hardest offenses to defend against. We'll see. Oak Park, they got a lot of experience coming back. Defense is still a question mark for Coach Greg Carter. Quarterback's a question mark. They got a lot of questions. And then you look at North Farmington. I am really curious to see how Stone Trevino is going to do. I am really curious. Because you got a playmaker in Terrence James back for Coach John Herstein. You got playmakers. But you got a quarterback who I think is ready to take over. And that will allow Terrence James to mostly go back to defense. But there's questions for Coach John Herstein. Big questions. Farmington, you look at them. Coach Jason Albright's team, they lost a lot of talent from last year. But they got some proven playmakers coming back. So Farmington could be a team to really watch for going forward there. And then in the gold, you think about with the gold, you look at Pontiac, obviously, replacing Kanye Donaldson's going to be a challenge for Coach Wendell Jefferson. You don't know the numbers there. That's a big question there for them. So that's something to keep an eye on for Pontiac. Avondale, new coach under James Carlisle. What type of system is he going to bring there? And then you look at that schedule coming up. It's brutal. They got to go to Cedar Springs. And then they got to go to Groves. You got to go to Hurley. And then you got to go to Carleton Airport. And Carleton Airport's down in Monroe County. That's brutal. I mean, Rochester, they got to play Monroe this year. But for first-year coach James Carlisle, playing Cedar Springs week 1, Carleton Airport week 9, that's brutal. And then you have Groves week 8, that's brutal. That is tough sledding for your first-year coach who has basically got to replace everybody there. That's going to be a tall order. Tall order for Groves. Real tall order. And then you look at Royal Oak. Coach Colin Campbell. Last season, you've seen progress with this team. You've seen progress. The question is, can he keep this progress heading in the right direction? Going on the way up? That's the big question I have with the Ravens. Is the upward progression? That is the $1 million question if you're Royal Oak. What is that progression? That's the $1 million question with Royal Oak. Ferndale's got a new coach too. When you look at the Eagles. When you look at Ferndale, obviously you have Ferndale has got to rebuild everything. And I mean everything. Considering what Coach Eric Royal had last year. They have to build everything. So when I look at the Eagles situation, I mean, they got a new coach. They have and really, when you look at them, the Eagles, my biggest question for them is going to be is, how will they adapt? How will they adapt to Donovan Jackson's system? How will they adapt to it? That is the $1 million question. We know the reputation that Coach Jackson has. We know that, he's a Ferndale alum. He was an assistant at Detroit Cass Tech when they won the Division I state championship last year. So there's that pedigree right there. The question is going to be for Jackson is what type of offense he going to run, what type of defense he going to run. I mean, because it's going to be a totally different team over there at Ferndale considering everything that Coach Eric Royal had over there. Now, what helps Jackson is obviously Ferndale's a co-op program. What helps him is obviously that. Because when you look at Ferndale, having Ferndale University right next door is going to help them. They have athletes too. So Ferndale could be a player to really watch for. And then last but not least, we got Berkeley. Coach Casey Humes. Last season, for him, was trial by fire. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, Berkeley didn't win a game. Last year, they won 3. So my question for them is, what's that next step? What's that next step? That's going to be a challenge for the Bears and Coach Hughes. And it's something to watch this offseason. Because when you look at Berkeley, it's going to come down to is depth. That's the big question for the Bears. We'll see what happens. All right, I'm going to sign off here. Make sure you follow the blog at SaginawBay4050 at blogspot.com for the latest information around the OAA. We're going to keep an eye on the basketball situations over at Ferndale for girls. So we're going to keep an eye on that one. Also several others I know that are looking for new coaches. We can keep an eye on that as well. So make sure you follow the blog at SaginawBay4050 at blogspot.com for the latest information around the OA. All right, I'm going to sign off here. Make sure everybody is well. Wish everybody best of luck as we head into spring sports. So see what happens. Take care. God bless, and I'll see y'all next week. Take care, and God bless all. God bless.